Hello, Crushlings. This is Noisy Paul with Electric Crush. I'd like to take a second and thank Punk and Judy for allowing me to be the roaming reporter for their awesome show. Thanks, Punk and Judy. My latest guest is Brijitte West. Bridget formed a pop punk band called New York Loose in the early middle 90s. The band was on a platinum selling Crow City of Angels movie soundtrack. They've toured with the likes of Marilyn Manson, L7, Reverend Horton Heat, to name a few. Bridget has an incredible story, and we're going to delve into it, some of it today. I'd like to introduce you to Brijitte West. Hi, Bridget.
Hi.
So I guess let's start with, do you have any memories or anything of Pittsburgh? I know you played with L7 in Pittsburgh. I got to see you there. Do you remember anything about that night?
Wow. I remember like really kind of going, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm actually playing with L7. Like I couldn't believe it. And actually what was really good was that it was sort of like my first time that I was able to play with other girls on the bill, because normally I was always the only girl, I was always the only girl on the road. I was always the only girl on the tour. I was like, and then suddenly I'm surrounded by all these other women. I was like, it felt so good. It was really, really fun.
Did you actually do a tour with them? Or was it just that one show?
No, unfortunately, it was just this one show, it was just this one show. And I was like, oh no, like I'd love to do more with them. But I think the end was near very around that time. So yeah.
Right. So when like at one point I was a diehard Queensryche fan, and one of my favorite songs was a song called Killing Words. And basically at one point they did an award show or an acoustic unplugged show or something, and they did a different arrangement acoustic with that song, and it gave me goosebumps. And during the pandemic I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, I wonder if Bridget would redo some of her songs. And so that's sort of how the Lockdown CD sort of started in somewhat of a way. Tell me about it.
Well, I'm having a really bad hair day. My friend Faye my friend Faye Blaylock, if you're watching this, I need fringe patrol. Basically, yeah. I just woke up. My hair is a little bit. Anyway, okay, so lockdown was, yeah. I mean, I kind of was watching a lot of these, a lot of artists doing, some stuff, acoustic stuff, and kind of thinking, gosh, that's cool. Like, because it felt like everybody was sort of in the same boat. And it was like, this is really, really interesting where, even the likes of, I don't know, Daniel Craig or, Alice Cooper, or like everybody is in the same boat here. It doesn't matter who
Right.
you are, And then I just started thinking, gosh, I'm just going to do this because I think it would be really, it was brave because it was just me and my iPhone and my guitar. And it was just a thing to do to ease the sort of isolation of people. And many people had asked me, previously to do acoustic versions of my songs because the songs kind of, I guess, lend themselves to being more stripped back, and it was great actually. I kind of was able to sort of get more involved in the actual songs and not involved in the recording process and the drums and how the drums work with the bass and that sort of thing. So it was really cool just to see the songs just stripped back. Right. And for me to play them that way, and for the audience to receive them that way. And
I think you hit it out of the ballpark with Pretty Suicide. Not only was it one of my favorites, but it seemed to be everybody would love that version of it.
I never thought it would work acoustic, because every time someone said, "Oh, do Pretty Suicide acoustic," like, how is that going to work? It's like such a rockin' song, but actually it did work. So
it did work very well.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
I honestly wish you had done more of your songs as opposed to the covers, but you always seem to lean towards Lou Reed songs. What's the attraction? And tell me about Pale Blue Eyes.
Well, I guess Lou Reed is a songwriter. I think he always thought of himself as a songwriter. In fact, he was he wrote kind of jingles and wrote sort of more on a commercial level before he got involved with the Velvet Underground. And um, he's from New York. He's a New Yorker. I love the Velvet Underground. I love Lou Reed. Pale Blue Eyes. I kind of it was the song that I felt I could read I could redo in a way that, again, you would hear it in a different way. I always think with artists when they do covers, there's like no point in doing it the way that the actual original song is. Like, what's the point? So
Right.
I felt like with that one, like I could make it my own. So yeah.
Well, I actually I've got a lot of feedback that there was a couple people that really loved the song because they said they've heard like a million different versions of it by different artists, and they thought that you nailed it on the head.
Wow, because I don't think I really was familiar with that many other people that did that song.
Apparently, there has been, and
Oh, I'm sure there
I
has.
guess there's been some really weird versions of it too. You and I have known each other for a very long time, but we've only briefly met twice. A lot of emails and messages over the years. Can we finally talk?
Yeah. Let's talk.
All right.
Can you talk, Paul? Can you talk?
Of course I can talk. I'm noisy. When I was young, I lived in what I lovingly called the dungeon. It was a small dark room in the basement. I had the black light thing going on. Had a turntable and one of those 8-track players with the radio. And you're one of 11. You're the 11th of 12 kids. What was your childhood like?
Well, it was pretty chaotic because there was so many of us. Um, we lived in a really big house, right by next to a wood, next to woods, and so I spent a lot of my time in the woods. Kind of, I learned how to fish, and I was really into kind of just being by the lake and spending a lot of time on my own as much as I could because, I had so many brothers and sisters. So sort of, time alone was quite like it was like sacrosanct. And
Right.
I wanted to kind of go into, I'd like to sort of think about my own thoughts. I was always a deep thinker, but there was always so much chaos going on in my house, and it was quite difficult. It wasn't the greatest childhood. I mean, it was, full of, sort of not, it was sort of like I grew up, sort of in the 70s, and sort of things were not taken as seriously, I think, around kind of care, and the parenting skills weren't as good as they are now. It was difficult. It was a difficult childhood, but it I think it informed me on how on getting through sort of tough times. A lot of my songs are biographical, um, autobiographical. My this song called Josie on the Sandusky album is about me. I'm
Okay.
Josie.
How many brothers are in music?
Um, well, I have, let's see, they're all sort of not, I mean, they're all kind of, they just sort of play. And,
Right.
some of them, one of my brothers is a producer. He's actually does a lot of work with me. He mixes and masters a lot of my stuff.
Right.
So he's sort of like he's made a living out of it. Everyone else, I have like three other brothers that are guitar players and songwriters, and very, very, very talented. Yeah, I mean, I'm the least talented person in my family, if you can imagine.
I find that hard to believe.
No, it's true.
Uh, at what point did you discover, the power of music in your heart?
Do I've been trying to figure that one out. When it was, what the moment was. Um, in my bedroom, I looked out onto a beautiful tree and sort of street lights. I grew up, the kind of the street I grew up on was sort of like half sort of suburban and half kind of rural-ish. Uh, and it was a moment where I got a chord book to learn how to play the guitar. And I remember just sort of like feeling my way through a couple of chords, especially sort of a D and D minor, and thinking, "Ooh, this really resonates with me. I'm going to tell a story right now." And that was kind of it. I started feeling like I wanted to tell stories, you know, and I must have been, you're probably going to want to know how old I was. Um, I think I probably was about 12 or 13, something like that. Maybe even younger. But yeah, we always had guitars sitting around the house, and I was, you know, I still have quite small hands. And I remember kind of holding it and going, "Oh my God, this is like holding the end of a baseball bat. How in the heck am I supposed to get my fingers around this thing?" You know, so yeah,
Right.
I was quite young.
So did you start with an acoustic or did you just go all out with electric?
No, no, I started with an acoustic.
Right.
I remember, I think when my first electric, I was quite terrified of it. I didn't know how to, you know, work
Yeah.
it, and you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, I remember one time I decided I was going to learn bass, and I bought a book, and I'm sitting there playing it, and I'm like, this sounds like Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I think I'm pretty confident it was. What do you remember? What maybe the first song you ever learned, or was it?
That's really like interesting because it's so weird. Like, I never sat down and learned other people's songs. Like, to this day, like, you know, if we're kind of sitting around at a party and someone will go, "Hey, Bridget, can you play, you know, Long and Winding Road," or whatever. I can't, like, I don't have like this sort of like arsenal of songs that I can come up with. I just don't. I've always just used the guitar to just play my own songs.
Right.
I mean,
What?
I
Yeah.
can play other people's songs, but
Right.
I know like my first songs that I learned were probably just stuff that I had written. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Did you at that point when you were young, did you have a dream of being in a band and playing guitar and going out on the road and stuff?
No.
Uh, it was just a release, so to speak.
Yeah. It really
Yeah.
was. Like, I don't think, you know, it's weird. Like, I don't know if I've said it before, but I never set out to be kind of, you know, famous. That was never kind of the thing. It was more like I just did what I did and people seemed to like it. And you know, the more people liked it, the more it seemed like, oh, maybe this is a viable kind of career, or you know, maybe I can do this for a living, and maybe, but you know, I never really kind of went, "Oh, I want to be a rock star. That's what I want to do." It was never sort of the reason why I did it. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people do that. Like, "Oh, I want to be famous and I want to be a rock star. So I'm going to learn how to play guitar and I'm going to front a band. And that's cool, you know." But that was never really how I felt about it. And, you know, it's interesting how the less I sort of put into my, um, wanting to be sort of, you know, in a band or famous or whatever, it feels like the more people gravitate towards it. It's hard to explain. I think I've always been that kind of quite understated artist. Do you know what I mean? Where I
Right.
don't, you know, I hope anyway. Because I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just never been my motivation. I always thought of myself first as an artist. So
Right.
artists sometimes are famous and sometimes they're not. It
Right.
just depends, you know.
But you want to tell me the story about the gun?
Yeah, so the gun, so I used to do a little bit of modeling, um and I was at a modeling job and in New York, and then the one of the models said, "Hey, let's go back to my friend's house and, you know, hang out for a little while." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So um we went back there, and it was really, really weird. Like, he was this really strange guy, much older than us, like much older than us. And he was sort of sitting in this room, and it was like the whole, like, the whole thing was weird. And I just got this very strange vibe about it. Anyway, then we're kind of just sitting there listening to music and, probably smoking cigarettes or whatever and smoking whatever. And then my friend said, "Oh wow, this lighter looks so much like a gun. It looks so real."
Oh
Next
no.
thing you know, a bullet passes through my hair. That's how close the bullet was to me. And then hits the wall in the back. I'm like in shock. He's in shock. The guy gets up and throws us out, literally physically throws us out. I was like, oh my God, this is just like the worst. I was so scared. I think I really was in shock. Anyway,
Right.
I get back to New Jersey. I'm still living in New Jersey at this point. I turn on the news in the morning. I think it was the next day. I must have been up all night, actually. And this man is being let out of his apartment in handcuffs.
Oh no.
And it said something like, arms dealer, arrested, right? And I think what happened is this gunshot must have alerted his neighbors, and somebody said there's a gunshot. And anyway, so yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I mean, I was in the house of a very dangerous man. So yeah.
Being right after you graduated or something, you moved to New York City.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you were working at an art gallery. Was that your first job there, or?
You know what my first job was? I worked for a horrible man called Howard Marks, who managed Kiss.
Okay. What did you
Yeah.
do?
I was just like a PA.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. I mean, I got a Gene Simmons story.
Okay.
So one time, and I was probably like 20 years old or
Okay.
something. It was like my first job in New York, and a friend of mine through another art gallery and an artist just got me the job. It was like the weirdest thing, and I didn't. Anyway, so wait, so I remember being at my desk, and I was really young, and Gene Simmons kind of come and sat next to my desk, and he was like, would you need to meet me at my hotel at 6 o'clock? And I was like, I was like, no. And he was ugly, like really, really ugly. I'm sorry, Gene Simmons. I think you're a genius, but my God, you were not. He was. I mean, I'm sorry. He was really ugly, really quite ugly, and his vibe was really creepy, and he was just so damn creepy. And I was like, ew, no. Anyway, so he kept kind of badgering me and stuff, and I didn't go, obviously. Anyway, the next day, I was told to go to his hotel and pick up an envelope.
Uh-oh.
I know. I was really terrified. It was a big uh-oh. I was like, "Oh my God, please don't throw me to the wolves." And
Right.
this was before, the Me Too. This is when women really
Yep.
were like, sacrificial,
Oh yeah.
fodder for men in the music business, probably in the movie business, most businesses. Anyway, I go to the hotel, I go to the reception, I say, "Hi, I'm here to pick up an envelope from Mr. Simmons." I get the envelope. And of course, I have to look in the envelope. I have to know what's in there, right?
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
So I open the envelope. It's the headshot, and then some of, I think, Miss April from Playboy, whatever. And so, and on the photograph, it said, "Dear Claire," who was my boss, please put this in the file." So he
Uh,
literally had a file
right.
of women that he, obviously had
Yep.
his way with. So yeah, that was my Gene Simmons story.
I just did a interview with Jason and Talk Louder podcast, and they're such huge Kiss fans, and I don't know how, I'm not the kind of person that'll cherry coat it, but I do not like Kiss at all. Uh, Maybe when I was younger, I started out, but then when you look at Kiss and Alice at one point, I sort of like the horror of Alice as opposed to the love gun and the
Yeah, I mean,
cheesy
it's
stuff
like
of Kiss.
totally. I mean,
And
Alice is like pure, theater, and he's
right,
an artist, and it's intelligent, and it's, it's based on, you know,
Alice has some tongue in cheek stuff too, but it's like
he does. It's not all serious, but Kiss is, I agree. I was
fake.
never that. However, I do really quite like the song "I'm Gonna Rock and Roll All Night and Party," or "I Want to Rock and Roll
Yeah,
and Party Every Day." I mean, that is a really fun song.
it is.
It's really a fun song, and that's the thing with Kiss. They're just a fun band. But yeah, anyway, I never really was a huge Kiss fan. But
Right.
anyway, I'm with you. I'm with you, Paul.
Good. When did you actually start thinking about starting a band when you went after you moved to New York?
Well, I kind of always wanted to be in a band. It was sort of like my big mission,
Right.
I had a okay, hang on. Yeah, I was kind of looking for band members in the Lower East Side, where I lived, which is a neighborhood in New York. Um,
How did you go about looking for bands? Did you put out flyers, or did you how did you? I remember the old days. You used to like put a little flyer in the record store and say, look,
yeah,
looking
I
for
think
a
that's
guitarist or something,
yeah,
and
I think that's probably what I did. Yeah, and then
or
I
was
and I
it like a word of mouth type thing?
this is a long time ago, so I can't quite remember the full process,
Right.
but I think I had met Rick Backus
Right.
at the Chelsea Hotel, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to start writing songs," and so we started writing songs together, and then we ended up. He was kind of my first kind of like person to do a band with. So I think he was the guy that um sort of showed me the ropes, and then sort of he had already been in a band before, so he knew people, and
Right.
so that's kind of how that happened.
Did you learn anything from like Jesse or in general about the music and writing songs or anything like that? No.
I don't know if I learned anything. I just sort of, I kind of followed them, or I followed sort of what they did and how they did it. I mean, they were very, very good at marketing their band, so
Right.
like they did all the flyering, so I did all the flyering, you know what I mean? Like, but back then I did all my own artwork, like the Bitch album cover and stuff. That's all my work. Also, all of the first 7-inch singles are all my work, and yeah, so I kind of realized that it needed to look good, it needed to sound good, So yeah, so that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. There's a story I hear about a boyfriend who OD'd. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so that was before I actually was in a band. I was working, funny enough, I was still working in an art gallery. And um we were kind of like having issues. He was an artist, he was a painter. And we were having issues. I can't remember why, but anyway, I probably because I was supporting him. I think I was just completely supporting him with my very, very, very low salary. So it was really difficult. And he was obviously the artist, so he couldn't work.
Right.
Anyway, so he decided that he needed his own studio. So he got a studio on Avenue D. And then he started staying over in the studio, and oh God, I was like, what's going on? Anyway, it was kind of odd behavior. Anyway, then he finally came back to our flat, and I was like, okay, cool. So you're back now. And I think I was like in the kitchen, and suddenly I heard this thump on the floor,
Hmm.
that was very loud. And I said, hello, are you all right? And I walked in, and there he was laying on the floor.
Oh no.
And he very, very quickly turned the color of a very old pair of blue jeans. So I kind of went, this, like, I panicked, obviously. I mean, I'm telling the story very calmly, but obviously I was very, very young, and I was like thinking, why are you, what's going on here? I had no idea that he even did drugs.
Right.
Okay. So I'm thinking, what is happening? So I kind of went to my neighbor and I started banging on the door and I said, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. He walked in and he knew immediately what it was. And then next thing I knew, I was literally surrounded by police and ambulance because they thought that we were drug dealers. So there were like 10 policemen
Oh
in
no.
the apartment. And this is a tiny apartment in New York. And they actually gave him one of those adrenaline shots, just like they did in Pulp Fiction,
Oh yeah.
right through the heart. And then he woke up, and I went, "You are such." I think I just said, "You are such an asshole,"
Right.
because I
So
had no idea that he even did drugs. Like I just didn't even know. I didn't even know. I was so young. I was like, "What just happened?" Like it was just anyway horrible.
in LA, there's all these famous clubs like Whiskey A Go Go, Troubadour, Roxy, Viper Room. What were the clubs when you were living in New York City? What were the big ones outside of CBGB's, of course?
Oh, okay. So we had the Cat Club, we had the Limelight, we had
That's right. I remember Limelight.
yeah, Webster Hall,
Yeah. Did you play
uh,
in any of those?
all of them.
Yeah. That's. Do you have any like great memories from either any of them?
Uh, yeah, they were all great. That whole time in my life was really great. It
Right.
was really fun. I mean, I couldn't believe how big the band became in New York. I mean, it
Right.
was like I would kind of go out on stage thinking there'd be like I would always think, oh, there's gonna be like 5 people here. The whole place was packed.
Oh,
It
that's
was
cool.
just yeah, it was always really, really great. We were very, very well received, and we had really good fans.
Right.
The community of bands though was not fantastic, but
Right.
we actually had actual fans that weren't that weren't our friends. Do you know what I mean? They were actual
Right.
fans.
Good. Did you ever hang out at any of them other than playing in it?
Yeah, I used to work at the Limelight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely hung out there for sure.
I don't remember because I've been to Limelight a bunch of times, but I'm sure I would have remembered you if I was there.
I was
Uh,
actually, to be honest with you, I was
yeah.
in the office.
Oh,
I was
okay.
answering the phone, and I was like dealing with like, oh my God, we have no more rum. Okay, wait, hang on, I gotta call the supplier. Like I was like more like logistics in the back. I wasn't
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't in the front. But
Okay.
sometimes I would go out and just have a look and see what was going on. But yeah.
Sure. Did you? How many times did you play at CBGB's, or how many times did you play at CBGB's?
Oh, countless times.
Good.
Countless times. I can't even remember. But yeah, it was always a fun night. And it was the vibe in that place was just fantastic.
It
I loved
is.
it. Except when I had to use the bathroom. That was always a bit of a
That
problem.
was what I was going to say. If you had a few drinks and you had to go to the restroom, did you actually go to CBGB's restroom?
Of course I did. And
Okay.
not only that, Paul, I actually have a picture of the restroom of CBGB's, and I have it almost like framed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it was just so disgusting. It was like it was like it was yeah. Anyway, I mean the graffiti and everything. I mean, hopefully we can get a picture of this up for your for
Yeah.
the podcast so people can actually see. But it was just full of graffiti. It never was clean. It was just like really gross, but like in a very New
Ironically,
York
I
way.
have a picture of the women's restroom at CBGB's
You
too.
do,
I do.
yeah. Okay.
Uh, I would get in a lot of trouble if I told you the story, so I'm not gonna go there. But
Okay,
um,
we don't want to get you in trouble, Paul.
no, I don't want to get in trouble.
Don't get in
But
trouble, Paul.
what was your connection with Ian Astbury and the cult? I've seen some story or some people talking about it recently on social media.
Really? That's so cool. Okay. Um, I liked the cult because I just liked the way he looked like a witch, like he looked like a male witch. Anyway, so I remember I was working at the Psychedelic Solution, and someone said, "Oh my God, the cult are here. They're walking down A Street," you know. And I kind of looked out the window. Oh my God, they're over at that clothing store. I'm gonna go over there. Anyway, I went over there and I just kind of was like, "Oh hi, I'm a really big fan." Anyway, this was even before New York Loose,
Right,
and then um you know, I was playing at Webster Hall, and somebody came up to me and gave me the coolest Alice Cooper t-shirt.
oh yeah,
Like, it was the coolest Alice Cooper t-shirt. I really wish I had it. And it was Ian Astbury.
oh
And
yeah,
it goes, "I heard that you're a really big Alice Cooper fan, and I wanted to give you this." And we were opening up for another band. No, I think we were opening up for Degeneration. Anyway, then he wanted me to go and do a tour with him, and he said he just was really a huge fan. I was like, this is like a dream. This is amazing. So we actually did some tours together, and he was lovely. He was a really nice guy. He was
yeah.
yeah, 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 but he was always a gentleman, and I wish him all the best because I hear that he's, you know, re launched the cult and he's touring again.
Right.
And if anyone knows him, and can get a message to him, please tell him I said a big hello, and I hope that he has a great time out there because he's such an amazing front man. He's
I'm an absolute huge cult fan, and actually
he's
they're touring Europe with Alice. They're on tour with
yeah,
Alice.
okay, well, I need to go to that for sure, and
Yeah,
I need to say hi to Ian.
yeah.
So that's a definite. So I keep hearing like things are getting canceled and then they're coming back. So I'm gonna have to try and get in touch with Roxy and find out what's going on.
There you go. So was Concrete Management your manager?
Yep. If you could say that in so many words.
Because
Um,
I was going through some paperwork and stuff, and I saw that, and I always thought that they were a decent manager. And then when you've been, on your podcast, you've been, saying how horrible your manager was, and I was sort of surprised that that it was Concrete.
well, not as surprised as I was. Can you imagine?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? I hire, you know, my friend's manager, because my friend was Sean Yassault from White Zombie.
right,
We sign up to Concrete. He um, convinces us. Meanwhile, we had deal memos, I found out later, with Interscope. Didn't never knew about that.
right,
Anyway, he signs us up to his pals record label, which you know what that means in the music business, usually a little bit of a payoff.
sure,
Hollywood Records, which was the worst record company that we could probably have signed to. And he basically proceeded to ignore us.
right.
Um, oh God, Knox, could you move, please? Sorry. Um,
I know that feeling.
animals all over the place. Yeah, so he just was absentee. He didn't pay attention. He didn't really. Yeah, it was all about Rob Zombie at that time,
Right, right.
and Pantera, and who else did he have? But yeah, we were just sort of an afterthought, you know. So we really, you know, we weren't taken care of. In fact, the bus fire, the Marilyn Manson
Yes,
bus fire,
right,
he didn't even send us any clothes or even like say, "Hey, do you need anything?" Nothing.
right.
And we were literally out there on the road with nothing. Terrible. He was terrible. I'm sorry, Andy. You were awful. And I
Yeah.
don't care because, you know,
Well,
I
it's
can say
funny
that.
because I've worked with a lot of bands that pretty much have the same story, and including bands that were on Interscope. It wasn't very happy with Interscope, so I think that a lot of these bands get signed sort of like, as you say, as a payoff or a tax write-off type thing. They release your CD and then drop you or
I don't
whatever, and
know.
it's
I don't
like,
know if it was that. I think who knows? You know what? I don't know.
right,
I mean, I don't know. I just think that it was not in the best. It wasn't in the it wasn't in the spirit of the band. It was more
right,
there was some sort of selfish kind of pre um I don't know what it was. I don't know, but I don't understand why you would sign a band,
right.
or work with a band and then really just not really do anything. It was, I don't know. It was weird. But anyway, all I can say is it's terrible.
Were they the ones to get Madonna to come to your show, or was that
No,
before?
no, that was
No,
before. No,
okay,
Madonna came to the show because she heard about us.
right.
So, yeah.
So you had said before that she only got to see a couple of your songs. Were you on that night? Like, why? I'm try. I try to figure. Try to thought. I've thought about it a lot. I'm like, how could she have gone? And even if she only saw a couple songs, like, why wouldn't she sign you right on the spot? You know. What do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's because Guy Uceris, who was her kind of her A&R guy and who she sort of like looked to towards for all of her advice and stuff on
Right.
the record label, he wanted to sign Alanis Morissette, and I think they felt like they couldn't have two women on the
Right.
label, so they signed her.
Right. So you get your record deal. Do you go right into the studio and record your album, or what was the guide me through the process? Uh,
Yeah, we kind of did. It was sort of, we yeah, we got the record deal and we went into the studio, basically. Yeah. Well, we had
then
to pick a producer and, kind of decide which songs we were going to do and figure out where we were going to do it and, that kind of thing. So,
right. So then you record your album, make a video, and then they planned a tour and stuff.
yeah.
Was the Marilyn Manson the first tour, or did you do other
Yeah.
shows?
That was the first tour that I did with Hollywood. And it was
Right.
when up for Year of the Rat. Yeah, and it was for the Antichrist Superstar album. And so
Right.
the Antichrist Superstar album was coming out in the same time as Years of the Rat. And
Right.
so, no one knew how big Marilyn Manson was going to get. It was just sort
Right.
of, so we started off in theaters and we ended up kind of like almost like in stadiums. It was pretty amazing.
Right. The year of the rat, in my opinion, is a pretty strong album. Uh, that you said that you had to pick which songs. Are there other songs that you had that you had
Uh, yeah. Do you remember that
written
song
before?
Fade? I think you like that
Yeah.
song Fade.
Yep.
That's not
Yep.
on there, right?
No.
A couple of other ones, we had like Lord Won't You Send Me a Devil, which was a little bit like a joke song, but we kind of want to re-record it on there, but that didn't get on there. I think that you can only get that on Born to Lose, which is a
Right.
live version.
Right.
I can't remember now, but I think there were a couple other songs kind of kicking around that didn't get on there.
Right. So was Spit the first single?
It was because it got on the Crow City of Angels soundtrack, and so they thought that would be a good idea to kind of coincide the release of the album with the release of the fact that we were in the soundtrack, and so yeah, that's right.
Like, who picked the song to be on the soundtrack?
The director,
He liked it.
yeah, he liked it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So so there was a rumor that Alice was supposed to be on Hollywood Records at one time. I had heard, and then I contacted the record company because at the time I was doing a magazine and I wanted to do an all Alice issue. And I was relying on a friend of mine who lived in Arizona who had like really old photos. And she had promised me that she was going to, let me use them for this issue. I had interviewed Neil Smith, Michael Bruce. I interviewed, past and current band members. I interviewed Renfield. and all I had to do is do Alice and then get these photos, and I thought it was going to be the greatest issue ever. And um, and anyway, she had told me that he hadn't technically signed yet. There was a rumor, but he hadn't technically signed with them yet. But if he did, that she would hook me up if I helped her with other Hollywood record bands.
Yeah.
And one day I get a phone call and she says, I'm going to overnight you a package and I need you to go to this concert tomorrow. I'm going to send you flyers and stickers and this and that. And I need you to go and pass them out. I said, no problem. Next day I get this package in the mail, Year of the Rat. And I had no idea that you were opening up for Marilyn Manson. So I get there and I went to the little bar next door, and Danny and Mark, of course, was there, and I showed them that I was showing them the the stickers and the flyers and stuff, and they were really excited. And at first they started buying me drinks, and then I was buying them drinks, and I feel absolutely horrible that that was probably one of the reasons why the band had broke up. And but
Not your fault, Paul.
but anyway, I remember because I had asked her for a photo pass and I was up in the front. Well, as soon as I got to the venue, I'm like, oh my God, they're opening up for Marilyn Manson. And I had seen, Marilyn's actually from Cleveland, and I had seen him even before, well, like when he was in like a hair band type band. And
Wow.
I at one point I sat there and actually watched him grow, go through all the different stages of his career. And I really got turned off when he started spitting on his fans. And, they loved it. But like when he's sitting there spitting right off the stage onto his fans.
I know, it was disgusting.
It was. And, but I was
but
like,
they
oh my,
loved it.
but I was like, oh my God, not another Marilyn Manson concert. And then I got up there in the front pit to take pictures of you, and you came out and like you guys kicked my ass. Like I listened to the CD, I loved it on the way there, but like live, you were phenomenal. And I don't know what your first song was on that tour, but I was immediately, I said, no matter what, I'm a New York Blues fan
Oh my God.
forever. And
You know what? It might have been Kiss My Wheels.
yeah.
Do you think it might have been Kiss My Wheels?
I remember it was a rocker.
Yeah,
And,
I think we came out, especially for that tour, we came out with something super strong and like was just definitely going like, please don't fuck with us. You just don't want to fuck with us. You know what? I am really, really proud of our live shows. It's not something that a lot of people talk about because not a lot of people got to see us because we were so short-lived, but I'm so happy that you actually appreciate it. And I think you must have seen us when we were still good. And when we were really good live, we were really good live. It was magic. And
right.
we were great live. And then we weren't, as we all know. But those were some of the best moments for me as an artist and as a even just as a human, being on stage and having that sort of energy, that united energy that we were able to produce on stage. I mean, it was powerful. It really was. And I'm so happy that you actually experienced it.
Like I said, as soon as and I have a Kiss My Wheels story actually. So we have, a lot of dogs, and one of them's name's Kiss. And I always sing Kiss My Wheels when I'm putting her away. I'm like, and anyway, my wife's not a huge fan of the song, but I love that song. The Reverend Horton Heat, I know you've said in past interviews about how that was sort of the end, towards the end of your towards the end of New York Blues. And I remember seeing you in Columbus and in Columbus, Ohio, and you were still good that night. I mean,
yeah, there were still some good nights. Yeah.
I was really excited because I had done an issue of my magazine. I interviewed Danny, and I cropped him out of the picture and had you on my cover, which is still one of my all-time favorites. And the and I sent it to the press, and I told them that I had to have it by a certain date. And that day in Columbus, it was the day that it got printed. And we had to, before we could drive, because it was like a 2.5 hour drive from where we lived. And I had to drive to the press to get the magazines. And then I get to Columbus, and we're trying to look for a parking spot. And I look up and I'm like, there's Bridget. I'm like, hey, get over here. And I handed you the magazine, and you seemed really genuinely pleased, to see that we put you on the cover and stuff.
Of course, yeah, of course.
But it was sort of funny because I was like, I would have loved to talk to you, and I never had that opportunity. And but I went to the bar next door, and there's Mark and Danny, and needless to say, we've had several drinks with them.
Yeah.
Poor Danny. I agree with you. It's like, it's a shame because I went and saw Faster Pussycat a few years ago, and I was all excited. And not only did he not remember me, but he was still in that state of.
Oh God.
I wore the Brijitte West T-shirt, and he was like, "Oh, that's freaking me out." That's what he said. But tell me about Alice Cooper and your connection with him.
Well, first of all, I'm a huge fan. I love his songs. I love his stories. I love his whole sort of, dark humor. I love Alice Cooper. I've always been a huge Alice Cooper fan. In fact, a lot of my lyrics, if you can pick them out, are direct kind of just sound bites from Alice Cooper songs.
Right.
And then
like Kiss My Wheels.
Yeah, and like sort of Under My Wheels, that song Under My Wheels. Love that song. So that was sort of a little bit of a homage to that song. But also the in No More Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, I've talked about in Spit, when I say you made me feel so dirty, you made me feel so clean. I completely just rip off the No More Mr. Clean, right?
Right.
And thank you, Alice, for never for never kind of like, saying that I ripped you off. But it was just, you were just inspiring. Anyway, so then I met a guy called Renfield.
Yep.
Who just was a huge fan and a massive help to me in the beginning. Right. He became the head of the New York Loose fan club, which did a lot of the work that Hollywood really should be, that Concrete Management should have been doing, but he did it because they weren't. Right. So he basically did a huge amount of work for us, completely unpaid, just for the love.
Yep. And how did you meet Renfield?
Okay, I don't remember. Do you remember?
I remember how I met Renfield.
I can't remember how I met him. I think it was, I think it was sort of probably at a show or something. And he kind of came up to me and he was like, I'm a big fan. And then I realized that he was Alice Cooper's, main assistant guy, and so yeah, he was great. He was a good friend. He was a confidant. He was a support. I couldn't have gone through a lot of stuff I went through back then without him, because he had seen it all, done it all. Right. He was on the front lines with Alice Cooper. Yep. Through thick and thin. We're talking about him in the past tense because unfortunately he's no longer with us. Right. In very tragic circumstances. So, yeah.
I know I've probably told you this 1,000 times, but I've always knew Renfield, and I always corresponded with him on email. He was very genuine and very very supportive of all the Sick Things fan club members. And so when we would chat online and stuff. But one day I was in California and I was walking down Sunset Boulevard, and there was these two guys walking towards me, and I knew who the one was. It was Eric Singer. At the time, he was Alice's drummer, and he and I have a past that isn't very favorable. I'm not a huge fan of Eric Singer, but I was sitting there thinking, oh no, I got to cross paths with Eric Singer again, and
Why? Can I ask,
uh,
can I interview you now and ask why?
no. But anyway, him and Renfield were walking down the street, and I was like, and I had a New York Blues shirt on, and Renfield says, nice shirt, and I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, do you like the band? And he's like, I love the band, and we started talking, and I said, well, what's your name? And he said, Brian Nelson, and I said, Renfield? And he goes, yeah, and I go, I'm Paul Unger, and he was like, because like I said, we had corresponded and stuff,
Oh,
and
how
he
funny.
couldn't have been any nicer. Like,
Yeah.
and then every time I showed up at an Owl show, he's like, "Hey, Paul, come on, I'll take you on the bus, and you could talk to Alice and stuff." And it wasn't because of the love of Alice; it was because of the love of New York Blues,
Oh,
and
wow.
and anyway, he was just a genuinely great person. I really but I remember that time when in Pittsburgh at the L7 show, you said, hey Paul, we would love to be a part of your network and stuff, and I'm going to give you this address and you contact this guy. And you were writing the address down, and as soon as I saw you writing the address down, I knew who it was, because I had corresponded with him before. I knew that address, and it's like, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, was that Renfield was your fan club guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he
Uh,
was. He was probably the coolest guy in the world. I mean, he
yeah,
was.
he
Just
was.
he
He
really
was.
was. He really was. And we all miss him. Anyone that's known him knew him really misses him. I miss
Yep.
him. We have the same, our birthdays are one day apart. So mine's
Oh
February
yeah,
17th and his is in the 18th. So we always, kind of had that as well. So every time I have my birthday, I always think about him.
that's very cool. You did a version of Iggy Pop's "Lust for Life." Have you ever met Iggy?
Yeah, I have. So Iggy was in the Crow City of Angels movie. He had a really big part, actually.
Right.
In fact, the movie is it's cool. So in the scene where they're in a fetish club, and then he's on a motorcycle and he drives a motorcycle out of the window of the fetish club. That's when
Yeah.
my song's being played. Um,
Yeah.
Spit. So I met him on the set, which was fun. He was
Right.
fabulous. And then he actually came to a show that we did at the Roseland Ballroom in New York, and it was him and Dave Navarro, and I think Huey from the Fun Loving Criminals. So they all, for some reason, all hanging out together, and that was
Right.
really fun. So I met him there as well.
That's very cool. I'm a huge Iggy fan. So after New York Blues broke up, what happened then? I know you met up with Sean and started Famous Monsters.
Yeah, actually, Famous Monsters was started in, even kind of like before New York Blues. We actually did, wait, was it before New York Blues? No, it was during the early days of New York Blues. We did a 7-inch single on Estrus Records, which was sort of like a surf rock label.
Right.
They had a
Right.
band called Man or Astroman, which we loved, and we had the drummer from Sonic Youth, Bob Burt, was the drummer, and he was dressed up like as Frankie Stein. So he was Frankie Stein, I was Vampire Girl, and Sean was Devil Doll. So we did that 7-inch single. And then years later, when New York Blues broke up, Sean, I kind of was sort of like, I kind of like moved back with my parents. It just literally could not have been a worse time in my life.
Right.
And then Sean said, hey, why don't you come to New Orleans and we'll do another Famous Monsters album. So I did that after New York Blues.
I revisited that some of those songs on Spotify, and it was really shocking for me to that you were in that band, so to speak. It just seemed like a different direction that what you do and play, because that is some weird stuff.
It's really weird. It's all it's really, really weird. It's totally like instrumental, most
Right,
of it, just with some shouting over. It was fun. I mean, because I do love like Dick Dale and all that kind of surf
right,
stuff. I mean, I do. And it was sort of the horror version of that, right? So it was like
right,
sort of the horror version. It was, the Alice Cooper almost version of Dick Dale.
right,
And um but you're right, Paul. It wasn't really me. And I was in this band as the guitar player for Sean's band.
right,
And it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So, and because of that, unfortunately, we sort of fell out because she really wanted me to be in that band full time, and that would be my new career after New York Loose. But
right,
it's, as you know me as an artist and a songwriter,
right.
can you see me doing that like full
No,
time, and that like putting all my energy into that? It was fun. It was like a joke. To me, it was like a joke band. And then
right.
she wanted to take it really seriously, and I was like, okay. So
So
yeah,
you're not in contact with her anymore, or
no, we
no?
were like
Wow,
best friends. We were
right,
best friends, but yeah, unfortunately, it broke up our friendship.
wow.
Yeah, it is wow, but whatevs.
Then you put out you put out your Americana album. When you first told me you were doing it, I was like, no. I'm like, how can you go from Desperate Hopeful's first CD to this one to Americana album? But I'm really amazed because it shows your versatility of songwriting and your singing ability. I mean, I almost like listening to that album now more than say your second solo album, the second Desperate Hopeful, or the With
Yeah,
Love.
from New York with Love. Yeah.
Yes. I almost like listening to it. One of my favorite songs, and I still post it every now and then, Green on the Vine. Tell me about that song.
Okay. So, Green on the Vine, it's a metaphor around uh coming to life again, having a
Right,
new start. Um so it's like when it was about sort of kind of self-discovery and kind of realizing that um I've been here before, but this feels like a completely new situation. I'm
right,
renewing myself. That's kind of what the concept was, and it was almost around how with my sort of with my songwriting and my sort of artistic journey. I was there. I was doing something completely new, and
right.
that's what that song is about.
I think that's a great song.
Thank
So
you very much.
you moved to the UK, and when did you move to the UK, and when was your first solo album? Like, how long was it after you moved there?
Well, I started writing the Sandusky album when I was in New Orleans. That's why it's a very, very sort of evocative of the South. It sounds, very Southern. It sounds, and there's a lot of songs about my time in New Orleans on that song, on that album. So I moved to the UK in 1999. I
Right,
was offered a publishing deal with Sony Music Publishing, which meant that I got sort of something called an advance, which means that, I had a bit of money so I could just move and kind of live and actually just write songs full time for a couple
right,
of years, which was bliss. And I wrote a lot of stuff. Basically, they wanted me to write pop songs and things like that with their stable of writers. I didn't, it was okay. I did a couple of things.
right,
Um, but mainly was still trying to forge away at my own stuff. And so I recorded the Sandusky album. That was the first sort of thing I did really officially after New York Loose.
Right. When did you put out your first solo CD, the Desperate Hopefuls?
That was in 2010.
Yeah. So you had been there 11 years before that came out.
Yeah.
And taking care of your kids.
I had 2 kids. My son was born in 2003.
Right.
So yeah, so from 2003 to 2010, I was taking care of kids.
Right.
Really, and I mean, I always will take care of kids because I have kids, but the that time was just me really, really focusing on my family. And then I decided to do some more writing, and then I was fortunate enough to find a band to help me work with, and to help me get this album out. So I did the Brijitte West and the Desperate Hopefuls, self-titled in 2010, which was a real tongue-in-cheek album. I wanted to do something slightly comical and slightly naughty and slightly, so I did that the cover where I'm in the bathtub and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
And then,
I respect your songwriting, and I think that a lot of your songs are like you said earlier, autobiography.
yeah.
And were you feeling real naughty then at that point, or?
Slightly rebellious, because I was sort of in the confines of the sort of housewife kind of, mom kind of life. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to show myself that I still have this other side of me. And so that was sort of, like me proving that I had that other side of me and that I could still rock out.
So I sit there and I think about all of your music. Of course, I love it all, but the New York Loose was what I fell in love with, the band and the music. But I have to say that first solo album is probably what if I had to envision like what your persona, so to speak, is, I would say that first solo album, and
What's your
the
favorite
music.
song?
I'm talking about the music, like
What's your favorite song on there?
It's My Fault. I love that song.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
I was a DJ, so to speak, for one day. Actually, the radio station that's going to help, or that I am helping now. I'm a roaming reporter, so to speak, and they're called the Electric Crush, and they let me come on the radio show one time, and I played several of your songs, but It's My Fault like fit right in their their
playlist.
They're like they're like a rock and punk rock type station, and It's My Fault just fit right in their set list.
Yeah.
But I love shoot, I can't think of them. It's the ballad, the one ballad, I think.
Oh, Bitter and Twisted.
Bitter and Twisted, yes. I love that song.
Thanks.
A lot of your songs are from life experiences or true events. When I hear your songs, you really know how to tell a story. And like I know you said in past interviews about Drunken Loser Friend. We all know who that was about.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the lyrics is "You had a blast in Idaho." What happened in Idaho?
Okay, so actually that is a Ramones reference. So I use a lot of different references in my music. It's almost like I leave all these Easter eggs, like in a video game, and I kind of wait for people to find them. So the line is, Danny says, "We gotta go. We had a blast in Idaho."
Right.
There's a song, I think it's on, well, I can't remember what album it's on. I think it's on End of the Century, Ramones.
Right.
Song called Danny Says.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
that's
the
awesome.
first line is, Danny says, "We gotta go to Idaho, and we can't go surfing because it's 20 below."
Right.
And so that's why I said, and we can't go surfing anymore. You
Right.
spent all your money at the liquor store. So
Yeah.
so that whole idea around Danny Says and Idaho and all of that is around the song Danny Says from the
That,
Ramones.
that's awesome. What about We Didn't Make It?
Yeah, so what about it?
Well, I'm just asking about the song.
That song is about an ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
He's called Supla, and he's a really pretty profound artist, pretty amazing artist. He's Brazilian. He's very, very, very famous in Brazil, not very famous kind of anywhere else. We had a lovely relationship. Um, but he lived in Brazil and I lived in the UK,
Right.
and it didn't work.
Right.
And so that song is a real kind of just basically about him and how much I regret how we couldn't made it work.
Right.
So that's what that's about. It's
What
about
about
Supla.
what about Lonely Satellite?
Lonely Satellite is about when I first moved to the UK. I was like, everything was very new and very kind of in a good way, but also I was very, very lonely because I was very far away from my anything, my home and my country and everything I knew. And so that song is about me,
Right.
basically being in England, in London, um, and just feeling kind of very isolated.
So we've heard the story about Dee Dee, and is Permanent Ink about him?
No, it's not.
Okay.
That's another song about Supla.
Okay.
A lot of my songs are about Supla.
So how many people have Bridget tattooed on their body?
What's that?
I said, how many people have Bridget's name tattooed on their bodies?
Oh, I don't know, but I know that Dee Dee did.
Yeah. How long was it that you were with him that till when he did that?
Like a month,
Oh yeah.
a week. I don't know.
uh, so as I said before, I totally respect you for your songwriting. How do you go about writing a song? Like, do you come up with do you have an ideal to start with before you, or do you just get on the guitar and just start playing, or like
It really depends. It really depends, Paul. So sometimes I pick up my guitar and I'll start kind of like, my hands will start moving through some chord progressions
right,
and a melody will very, very quickly come. And then sometimes a lyric or a theme will come. Um, and that is really fun when that happens and it all kind of happens at once. And I go, I know what I'm going to write about. I know what's going to happen here. But the thing is that really doesn't happen that often anymore because I don't have that amount of sort of solitary chunks of time that it takes in order to actually be to do that. Right now I'm not complaining because I have a wonderful life, but I do lots of other things. So that used to be my way. Probably with New York Loose I could write 4 songs in a week and it would that's how it would happen. Now it's much more like I really have to think about what I'm going to write about.
right,
I have to think about, a lot of times I start with the title. So I'll start with like the title lyric. And then I'll go, okay, so this is the theme of the song. This is going to be a rockin' song or a slow song or something like that. And then it comes to me. And what's really, really great about it is that I don't think about it too much.
right.
I don't concentrate on it too much. It's as if the song was already written and all I need to do is just receive it. And it's pretty great. And and I just call it a gift because I don't know even how I do it, but that's how I do it.
Like, Obviously, I don't play guitar or anything, but I know like the terminology, so to speak, like the bridge and
Yeah.
uh, the solo and all that stuff. But is there like a chart that you go by? Like, do you like? Again, I'm not real familiar. The reason why I'm asking is for people like me that's not familiar with the terminology or uh,
Yeah.
the process.
So I
Um,
think, yeah, I think because I really am into the craft of songwriting, I think a lot about that, and that actually is what we call just like the arrangement of a song.
right,
So you're right, the different parts are you can have well, you have the verse, and then you have usually you have a chorus, and then you have another verse, and you have maybe a bridge, and then maybe a solo, and then a chorus. But the thing that I always try and do in my songs is I usually try and do a pre-chorus. So
right,
I usually do a little bit before the chorus that sets up the chorus,
right,
which is something that I've always tried to have in most of my songs. And I think that's one of the things that makes them have a little bit more quality about them.
right. Um,
So
so
yeah.
define bridge and like I was just thinking of um, define the bridge. What's a bridge?
A bridge is almost like a departure from the rest of the song. So a
Okay,
bridge is the bit of the song that doesn't sound like any other part of the song. It's
okay,
different chords, it's different melody. It brings you to another place. It usually lifts the song. It's usually the bit live where you kind of go up, to that, next level. Or
right,
sometimes it's the bit that breaks down
right.
in a song. So it could be both.
So Ryan Roxy, Alice Cooper's guitar player, had said that if he hadn't got the Alice gig, he would have joined New York Blues.
Yeah.
Tell me about the whole Roxy uh, experience, so to speak.
Well, I'd been friends with him because I knew the Electric Angels. I knew he was in the Electric Angels. I was friends with Jonathan Daniels.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, we were looking for a guitar player, and someone said, because, Gary Sunshine just kind of walked out of the whole project in the middle of
right.
it. And someone said, oh, actually, wait, hang on. I think maybe Ryan was before that. Do you know, I'm terrible. My memory is terrible. Anyway, I know that we were looking for a guitar player, and I really, really wanted Ryan to do it.
Yeah,
Um, because, we were good at writing songs together too, and he could sing. And so I was like, great, we can like just do this whole, we will be, the two, almost like, a double act, from before,
did you actually write songs with them, or did you play any
yeah,
shows
I
with
think
them?
we did actually. I don't think anything ever came of it, but yeah, because like, I was very, I wanted New York Blues to be a band. I didn't want it to be Brijitte West and New York Blues. So
Right,
I kind of felt like, somebody like Ryan could really step in and be that, the Keith Richards to the Mick Jagger. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it could be a band. It wasn't all about me, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. So it,
Yeah,
it would have been a very, very different story if it was. I think we would have taken over the world.
of course. Two of my very favorite people.
Yeah, it would have been fabulous, but it
Um,
wasn't meant to be. So there you go.
well, do you ever think that you could collaborate with them and maybe write a song together,
I
or
would love to. I would love to. I think we need to just be in the same room, and at the moment we don't even live in the same country, so
right,
it's not easy. But
right,
we will. I think we will definitely. I think for my new album, I would like to have him at least, play on it and definitely write songs. I just probably need to get to Sweden, or he
right,
needs to come here,
right,
because it's difficult. I don't like working remotely. I find it very difficult. Like,
right,
I don't, I just, I need to be in the room with someone.
right.
So,
Well, as the number one fan of both Ians, I personally would absolutely love that. If even if it's just one rock song, No
We'll make
covers.
it happen for you, Paul, won't we, Ryan? Yeah.
And then it's sort of weird because I've worked with you for a long time, and you know, in all honesty, and I'm just being honest, you know, working for you has been a challenge. It's been a tough sell. Um, you know, you have punk rock in your veins, but in some way, the punk rockers look at you as, um, you know, too pretty.
I
Your voice is
know.
too pretty, and then, but yet you're but yet the rockers, you know, think of you too much like punk. And it's like it's been a tough sell, but I have
I
to
know.
say, lockdown's been very successful.
It has been. Isn't
I've
that
been really
interesting?
pleased. It's sort of been an easy sell for lockdown, and that's just really weird, I think. But
It really is weird. I just thought like, okay, because when you said you wanted to do this, I was like, Paul, really? I don't think anybody's gonna like. I really was like, I don't think anyone's gonna really like this, but let's go for it. Let's see if people like it. And it's been so well received. I almost think it's because, it's me just being. I think you're right. Like I was always a little bit too pretty to be punk rock, and my voice was never really, I never really kind of fully signed up to being hardcore and getting the mohawk and all that kind of thing.
right,
And then, I was always a little bit too punk for the rockers. Um, and, I think for me, it's just been like, I don't really care
right,
who likes me and who doesn't like me. It's like,
right,
if you like good music, hopefully you'll get it.
right,
I've never really been that into my image as far as, I have to be a certain. I've never tried to pigeonhole myself anyway. As an artist, I've done everything from instrumental,
yep,
punk rock, surf band to, country. So I kind of always feel like for me as an artist, I just want to be Brijitte West. I just want to
right,
be, I just want to be who I am as an artist. And thankfully, my fans, a lot of people have gone along with it. So thank you,
right,
because it is a journey. I do go from one thing to another. But
right.
you're right. The lockdown thing, just coming back to that, I think it was because it was just me and my guitar and an iPhone. I think people were just like, okay, we got to kind of pay attention to someone that's like
Yeah.
actually crazy enough to do that.
And the thing is, it took a lot of balls to, you know, release a CD that you made it on your iPhone. But I think it sounds incredible. I mean, I listen to it regularly, and it sounds really good. Uh,
Thank you.
The
I
only thing
mean,
that I wish was there was more Bridget West
I
songs than
all right. Well,
covers. But
let's do. Well, hopefully we don't ever have another pandemic. But I'm
right,
very very happy to keep doing a couple of acoustic New York blues songs and stuff.
sure, yeah, I would love for you to play Hyde, and if you can do that on this podcast, I'd appreciate it.
You never know. You
All
may
right,
get your wish.
all right.
All right.
So thank you very much, and I hope you I hope you have happy writing.
Thank you very much. We will see you on the other side.
Yes, we will. I have one more thing. You might have, if you watched my interview with him, I spoke about the Sims Foundation, and it's very. Sims was a bass player in a band called Pariah. Pariah was the first band to ever ask me to work for them back in the '80s, and they're like my brothers. And Sims unfortunately passed away, and his manager had put a foundation together to help with um, mental health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I I started out as asking for you know, the bands to make a donation, but it's more of awareness. I think it's really important to um, get the word out, and encourage people to make a donation, of course. But it's very important to me to share awareness to the Sims Foundation. And so if there's any chance at some point, you know, on your social media or whatever, just send a link or something, and help me get the word out about it.
Well, send me a link,
I
and
will.
we can put it on the Facebook. Absolutely. I think I will be dealing with that very issue a
Right.
lot on my next album.
Right.
Um, it's it's an epidemic at the moment.
Yep.
People are really going nuts because of the way the world is. Things are very unstable in the world. Therefore, people's mental health is very, very unstable. It's a very dark time for a lot of people.
Right.
And people need help. They don't need anybody to judge them. They don't need anybody to think that they're weak.
Right.
Mental health is a really important thing. And I'm absolutely all for anything that supports
Well, the Sims
health.
Foundation primarily helps the music community, anybody in the music business, and like I said, especially now, this foundation's been around for 20 some years since Sims passed, and I think now is the time to actually really push it.
For
Um,
sure.
I
Absolutely. You got my support 100%. Anything I can do to
and
help,
I
I will.
appreciate that.